Dopamine and retail therapy. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter released by the brain that plays several roles in humans and in animals. Even though it has different functions in movement, in memory, behavior, and cognition, attention, sleep, and learning, dopamine is mostly known for its role in our mood and the pleasurable rewards associated with different activities like sex, eating our favorite food, exercising, dancing, and even shopping. It's very well known as the happy hormone, but it does much more than that. For our purpose in this course, we're going to talk about dopamine as the chemical that mediates pleasure in the brain, as it is released during pleasurable situations, stimulating us to seek out and choose the joy of an activity or an occupation. However, keep in mind that the same dopamine is also responsible for people becoming addicted, in the sense that they are always seeking pleasure so that they can reach higher and higher happiness levels because of how that rush makes them feel. Have you ever heard of the term dopamine rush before? I'm sure you've heard of adrenaline rush as something we experience when we do an activity perceived as dangerous by many. And we get, in that case, into the fight or flight state, like when riding a roller coaster or jumping from a plane or facing some kind of other danger. But the dopamine rush is different than the adrenaline rush because it's responsible for our experience of happiness. The adrenaline rushes, such as those experienced when playing sports, are based on the same pattern. That's because adrenaline and dopamine are close relatives. However, serious health problems can arise if too little or too much dopamine is being produced by the body. For example, if too few dopamine molecules are released, diseases like Parkinson's can develop, while an excess of dopamine can lead to hallucinations or manias and schizophrenia. Now, don't get me wrong, a continuous production and high levels of adrenaline are not healthy either. In that case, many people cannot sleep, they cannot relax, their body is in continuous shock mode. So in this case, no extremes are good. So now that you know a little more about what dopamine is and its role in the body, let's dig deeper into buying goods and services and the role that this happy hormone plays in that. I think most of us agree that we don't have to be diagnosed as shopaholics to experience a rush when shopping. This is exactly why even the most casual shopper finds it challenging sometimes to exercise self-control at the cash register. Researchers at Stanford University proved that only when we see pictures of items we'd like to buy, a region of our brain with dopamine receptors is activated. So you can imagine how strong that signal is when we actually get to see live the products that we like and even try them on. In general, dopamine receptors are activated when we experience something new, something exciting, or something challenging. This could range from eating something really tasty to winning a competitive game, or to dancing a new dance, or taking a new exercise class, or riding a really cool sports car. It enables us not only to see rewards, but to take action, to move towards getting those rewards that make us feel good. So when we go shopping and we see signs for things on sale or big discounts, it triggers a sensation of instant gratification. I can have this and I can save money too. The more we feel good about a sale, the more likelihood that we will continue to shop. But afterwards, after we're done shopping, similar to alcoholics or to drug addicts, when the dopamine rush runs off and the levels go down, we often feel guilt and we question our choices. To get to that high, And to that good feeling again, we need to go back for more. In our example, for more shopping. We typically decide on a purchase very fast. Actually, it only takes 2.5 seconds to take a decision of buying something without much of a rational thought. When attracted to the sales tag, we don't use the usual rationalization and weighing in options, that method that we would use in other circumstances. And this is because these types of impulsive decisions are often made subconsciously and not in our conscious mind. During the excitement, we feel there is a spike in brain waves that occurs, and this results in deep emotional investment or engagement in a specific product or a service. In most cases, those impulses are triggered by our previous experiences with specific products, services, or brands. They can also be triggered when we spot items on our wish list, something that we dreamed about for a long time. Please know that in most cases, depending on the purchase, we are not necessarily addicted to the things we buy, but rather to the expected thrill of the activity that we plan to do. In fact, MRI studies of brain activity, like we've discussed in the previous lectures, suggest that surges in dopamine levels are linked much more with the anticipation of an experience rather than the actual experience itself. Consequently, feeling of well-being, of pleasure, and even abundance happens sometimes when we just think about shopping, and this can happen days or even weeks before we even go and buy anything. So the anticipation of the activity or of the consequences of that action is what gives us pleasure in the first place. Now, when we finally get to make that purchase during the sales period itself, studies have shown that our body's nervous system, which is the system that triggers our fight or flight responses, reflexively takes control of us. As a result, in some humans, a heightened response in the body is created, similar to the one we used to have thousands of years ago when living in cages and encountered dangerous predators. It can be difficult to control our impulse to buy something that we really want and like when our brain is switched into the flight or fight mode, as in the competitive mode. This occurs due to the fear that many have of missing out on a purchase, and the thought process for this goes as follows. If I don't buy it, someone else will. This fear is also known as the loss aversion theory, which many people have more or less, as we don't like to lose anything, and especially we don't like to lose anything to someone else. Specifically, in the case of sales drive, it gives us a compulsion to buy an item because not buying that item presents us with the threat of a big loss. As a result, we irrationally overvalue losses approximately twice as much as gains. And we think this way, oh, but if I don't buy that, I will lose so much. I will lose the opportunity to impress that specific someone, and that can be yourself, and impressing that person, suddenly it's twice as important to me when compared to the money that I'm willing to spend on this. Why do we think like this? Well, it's because consciously or not, most of us calculate purchases based on how it's going to validate or even upgrade our social status. And ultimately, our social status is naturally linked with the reproduction success. I know it's different, but just like a peacock, it's opening up the tail to attract a male. Without realizing at a subconscious level, we are making those impulsive purchases often for the same reasons, to help us find a mate and to help us with our social status. On the other hand, some shoppers experience a slower heart rate, a state of pleasurable relaxation, and not exhilaration at all when they shop. We've all heard the term retail therapy as a way to relax and escape from the daily problems. And these, just like the deep breaths and those deep breathing techniques that we have while meditating, they work the same. Many marketers know that dopamine is only one of the most addictive substances known to men, and it has clearly seductive effects over any decision that we